The signal came through at 0300 hours, screaming across the darkness of space like a dying star. Admiral Tay was already awake when the communication officer burst into his quarters aboard the battleship Indomitable. Sleep never came easy in deep space, especially not in the forbidden zones where Earth's patrol ships watched for threats that might never come. "Sir, we're picking up something strange," the young officer said, her hands shaking as she held the data pad. "It's not human. It's not anything we've ever heard before." Tay pulled on his uniform jacket and followed her to the bridge. The ship's communication array was going wild with signals, all of them overlapping, all of them desperate. Captain Jin stood at the main console, his face pale in the blue light of the holographic displays. He had already begun running the translation programs, letting the ship's artificial intelligence try to make sense of the alien words. "What do we have?" Tay asked. Jin shook his head slowly. "Sir, it's a distress call. Multiple distress calls, actually. From what I can tell, there are at least 14 different sources. They're all saying the same thing." He paused, his finger hovering over the playback button. "They're begging for help." The bridge fell silent as the translated message played through the speakers. The voice was artificial, processed through layers of computer translation, but the emotion behind it was real. Fear. Pure, absolute fear. "This is Council Speaker Thelmar of the Galactic Union. We are under attack. The Vorax swarm has breached our defenses. 14 colony worlds are dying. Our people are being consumed. We have exhausted all defensive measures. We have no weapons left to fight. If anyone can hear this message, if anyone in the galaxy has the strength to help us, please. We are dying." Tay stood perfectly still, processing what he had just heard. The Galactic Union. Earth's intelligence services had picked up scattered references to such an organization over the past 20 years, ever since humanity had developed faster-than-light travel. But there had never been direct contact. The few times human ships had tried to make peaceful approaches, they had been warned away, their vessels tracked by automated defense platforms that made it clear they were not welcome. Earth was quarantined. Humanity knew this, even if they didn't fully understand why. The official policy was to respect the boundary and develop human space independently. But now someone from beyond that boundary was asking for help. "Get me a location on these signals," Tay ordered. "And wake up Commander Hana. I need her analysis team working on this immediately." Lieutenant Wu, the ship's tactical officer, was already pulling up star charts. "Sir, I'm tracking the coordinates now. They're coming from a sector about 40 light-years from our current position. There's a cluster of habitable worlds there, all of them sending out these signals." His fingers danced across the console. "Sir, some of these signals are days old. Whatever's happening out there, it's been going on for a while." Within an hour, the Indomitable's senior staff had assembled in the briefing room. Commander Hana arrived with her analysis, her eyes red from lack of sleep, but her mind sharp as ever. She projected the data onto the main screen, showing a three-dimensional map of the affected sector. "Based on what we can gather from the signals, this Galactic Union is a coalition of multiple alien species," she explained. "They seem to be peaceful, with limited military capability. The Vorax swarm they mention appears to be some kind of hostile force that's systematically attacking their worlds. From the desperation in their messages, I'd say they're losing badly." "Why come to us?" Captain Jin asked. "They've kept us locked out for 2 decades. Why ask for help now?" Hana pulled up another screen, this one showing fragments of translated text. "They're not asking us specifically. They're broadcasting to everyone, hoping anyone will answer." But here's the interesting part. In some of the later messages, they specifically mention the quarantine zone. They mention Earth. It seems like we're their last hope, even though they're terrified of us. Terrified? Major Yuna, the chief engineer, leaned forward. "Why would they be afraid of us?" "Because they know what kind of planet we come from," Hana said quietly. The few times they've sent probes to Earth, they classified it as a death world. Extreme gravity, violent weather, dangerous predators, deadly diseases. In their view, any species that could survive Earth would be too dangerous to contact. They put us in quarantine to protect themselves. Tay absorbed this information, his mind working through the implications. Humanity had always wondered why they were alone in this corner of space. Why every attempt at first contact had been rejected. Now he knew. The galaxy was afraid of them. "So what do we do?" Jin asked. "This isn't our fight. We don't owe these aliens anything. In fact, they've been actively avoiding us." The room fell silent. Everyone looked at Tay, waiting for his decision. He thought about Earth, about the millions of people living on that harsh, beautiful planet that had tried to kill humanity every single day for thousands of years. He thought about the resource wars, when humanity had almost destroyed itself, fighting over the scraps of a dying world. He remembered the desperate years when it seemed like extinction was inevitable. Humanity knew what it meant to face impossible odds. They knew what it felt like to be helpless and afraid. And they had survived not because they were the strongest or the smartest, but because they never gave up. Because when things got hard, humans didn't quit. They fought. "Get me a channel to Fleet Admiral Sung on Earth," Tay said finally, "and start preparing the ship for combat operations. We're going to help them." "Sir?" Lieutenant Wu looked surprised. "We don't have authorization for first contact, much less military intervention in alien space." Tay smiled grimly. "Then we'll get it. Because if there's one thing humans understand, it's fighting when your back is against the wall. These aliens might be afraid of us, but right now, we're the only hope they have." He stood up, his decision made. Besides, when someone asks for help, you don't ask questions. You just show up. Within 6 hours, the authorization came through from Earth. Fleet Admiral Sung didn't just approve the mission. He mobilized the entire Pacific Defense Fleet, 300 warships strong, to join Tai's response. Commander Day, the legendary Marine commander who had never lost a ground battle, volunteered her entire division for deployment. As the Indomitable prepared to jump to hyperspace, Tay stood on the bridge and watched the stars. Somewhere out there, 14 worlds were dying. Somewhere out there, billions of lives hung in the balance. The galaxy had kept humanity locked away because they were too dangerous, too violent, too much of a threat. Now, they were about to find out what Deathworlders looked like when they were fighting to save lives instead of end them. "All ships ready, Admiral," Captain Jin reported. "Then let's go introduce ourselves," Tay said. "Maximum speed. And somebody get Major Yuna working on combat drop pods. Something tells me we're going to need them." The fleet jumped to hyperspace, leaving Earth behind. First contact was about to happen, and it was going to be written in fire and blood. The sky above Eshtar Prime was burning when the human fleet arrived. Admiral Tay watched from the bridge of the Indomitable as the planet rotated below them, its atmosphere choked with green and yellow clouds that pulsed like a living thing. Those weren't natural clouds. They were Vorax biomatter, the organic weapons that the swarm used to break down a planet's ecosystem before consuming it entirely. "Sir, we're receiving more distress signals from the surface," the communications officer reported. "The Corvalli are still alive down there, but they're running out of time. Their shelters are failing." Captain Jin studied the tactical display, his face grim. The Vorax fleet surrounding the planet was massive. Dozens of organic ships that looked more like giant insects than spacecraft, their hulls pulsing with bioluminescent lights. Between the fleet and the planet's surface were thousands of smaller attack craft, swarming like angry hornets. "Those acid clouds will eat through our shields in minutes if we're not careful," Lieutenant Wu said, running calculations on his console. "The Corvalli ships couldn't handle them. That's probably why they lost the orbital battle so quickly." Tay nodded slowly. "What's the concentration of the acid?" "Hi, sir. Similar to concentrated sulfuric acid based on the sensor readings. A small smile crossed Tay's face. So about the same as the acid rain on Venus during storm season. We've done training runs through worse. He turned to Jin. Captain, take us down. Full atmospheric entry, and tell Major Yuna to prep her engineering teams. We're going to clean up this mess. The Indomitable shook as it hit the outer atmosphere, alarms blaring as the acid clouds began eating at the ship's shields. But the shields held. They were designed by humans who had learned to build things tough because Earth left no room for weakness. A little acid rain wasn't going to stop a ship built to survive solar flares and asteroid impacts. Below, in the underground shelters of Eshtar Prime, the Corvalli watched their sensors with disbelief. Governor Venlar had long given up hope of rescue. His people had been hiding for 3 days, watching through external cameras as their beautiful world died above them. The Vorax had taken everything, and now the sensors were showing something impossible. Governor, there's a ship entering the atmosphere, his aide whispered. It's not Vorax. It's not any design we recognize. Probably scavengers, Venlar said bitterly, coming to pick through the ruins. But the ship didn't behave like scavengers. It descended straight into the thickest part of the Vorax cloud layer, its shields blazing blue as the acid washed over it. And then it fired its weapons. The orbital bombardment was precise and devastating. Tay had Lieutenant Wu target the Vorax breeding pools first, the organic structures where the swarm grew new warriors. Kinetic missiles streaked down from orbit, each one hitting with the force of a small meteor. The explosions lit up the poisoned sky like fireworks. Drop pods launching now, Commander Day's voice came through the comm system. She was already in her combat armor, standing in the deployment bay with 500 Marines. Landing zone is hot, very hot, but we've handled worse. The drop pods were shaped like bullets, designed to punch through any atmosphere at maximum speed. Inside, Day and her Marines braced themselves as the pods broke through the Vorax clouds and screamed toward the surface. The G-forces would have killed most aliens. For humans trained in Earth's heavy gravity, it was just uncomfortable. Day's pod hit first, burying itself 3 meters into the ground before the explosive bolts blew the sides off. She rolled out with her rifle ready, her helmet display already showing enemy positions. The Vorax warriors were everywhere, 3-meter-tall nightmares with 4 arms and mandibles that dripped acid. They moved fast, coordinating through their hive mind with perfect efficiency. But they had never fought humans before. The first Vorax warrior charged at Day with incredible speed, its claws extended. She didn't retreat. She sidestepped at the last second, letting it pass, and put 3 rounds into its back where her sensors indicated the central nerve cluster was located. The warrior dropped, twitching. 2 more came at her from different angles. She shot one in the head and used her combat knife on the other, the blade finding the weak spot between its armor plates. All around her, Marines were landing and engaging the enemy. The Vorax had numbers and biological weapons. The humans had something better. They had experience fighting on a planet where everything was trying to kill them. Every human child learned to watch for danger, to react fast, to never give up even when hurt. Those instincts, developed over millions of years on Earth, made them perfect soldiers. Major Yuna landed with the second wave, her engineering teams carrying portable atmospheric processors. While the Marines held the perimeter, she set up the machines and activated them. The processors began sucking in the Vorax toxins and converting them into breathable air. It was technology developed for terraforming dead worlds, but it worked just as well for cleaning up biological weapons. Atmosphere is clearing, Yuna reported to Tay. Give us 30 minutes and we'll have clean air in a 3-kilometer radius. Above the planet, Captain Jin was dealing with the Vorax fleet. The organic ships tried to swarm the Indomitable, but Jin's fighter wings were already launching. Human pilots flew their craft with a recklessness that bordered on insane, weaving between Vorax ships and targeting their vulnerable spots with surgical precision. The aliens' hive-mind coordination was impressive, but it made them predictable. They all reacted the same way to threats. Jin exploited that, using feints and misdirection to pull the fleet out of position. On the ground, the battle raged for 14 hours straight. The Vorax kept coming in waves, thousands of warriors throwing themselves at the human positions. Day's Marines dug in and held the line. When they ran low on ammunition, they switched to explosives. When those ran out, they used knives and their armored fists. The Vorax were formidable enemies, but humans didn't know how to quit. Finally, as the sun rose over Eshtar Prime, the last Vorax warrior fell. Day stood in the middle of the battlefield, her armor covered in acid burns and alien blood, and allowed herself one long breath. Around her, Marines were treating their wounded and counting ammunition. Several were eating rations, casually sitting on the corpses of Vorax warriors like they were rocks. The underground shelter doors began to open. Governor Venlar emerged first, his legs shaking. He was a Corvalli, slender and gray-skinned, with large eyes that had evolved for a world with gentle light. He had never seen violence like this. His people were pacifists by nature, evolved on a world with no predators and no wars. Day removed her helmet, revealing her very human face, streaked with sweat and dirt. She walked toward the governor with her hand extended, the same gesture humans had used for peace for thousands of years. "Sorry we're late," she said in accented Corvalli, the translation having been loaded into her armor's computer. "Traffic was murder." Venlar stared at her hand, then at the battlefield covered in Vorax dead, then back at the human woman who had somehow fallen from the sky and saved his world. Slowly, carefully, he reached out and took her hand. "You're from Earth," he whispered. "You're the Deathworlders." "Yeah," Day smiled tiredly. "We are, and you called for help. So here we are." Behind them, more Corvalli were emerging from the shelters, staring at the humans with a mixture of awe and terror. Admiral Tay's ship landed nearby, and he stepped out to survey the scene. This was first contact. This was the moment humanity had dreamed of for generations. And it was happening in the middle of a war zone, with blood still fresh on the ground. Tay walked up to Governor Venlar and extended his hand as well. "I'm Admiral Tay of the Earth Defense Fleet. We received your distress call. We're here to help." "Help?" Venlar looked around at the destruction. You destroyed them. All of them. In one night. We've been fighting the Vorax for months and couldn't even slow them down." "That's because you were fighting fair," Tay said quietly. "We learned a long time ago that when survival is on the line, there's no such thing as fighting fair. There's only winning or dying." "And humans really, really hate dying?" As the sun climbed higher, Major Yuna's atmospheric processors cleaned the last of the Vorax toxins from the air. The sky turned blue again. The Corvalli began to weep with relief, and the humans began the long work of securing the planet and preparing for the next battle. First contact had been made, and the galaxy would never forget it. The news of Eshtar Prime's liberation spread through the Galactic Council like a shockwave. Within hours of Admiral Tay's report, every member species knew that the Deathworlders had broken quarantine and entered the war. The reactions were mixed at best and terrifying at worst. On the council homeworld of Venar, Speaker Thelmar stood before the assembled representatives and tried to maintain order as the chamber erupted in arguments. The Corvalli delegate was praising the humans as saviors. The Falari ambassador was demanding they be sent back to their quarantine zone immediately. Others fell somewhere in between, uncertain whether they had been rescued or if they had simply traded one threat for another. "Order! I will have order!" Thelmar's voice boomed through the chamber. His 4 arms gestured for silence. We asked for help. Help came. We cannot now reject it because we are afraid of who answered our call. Ambassador Kren of the Falari stood up, his fur bristling with agitation. You don't understand what you've done, Speaker. We quarantined Earth for good reason. Our probes recorded everything. That planet is a nightmare. The gravity alone would crush most of us. The weather systems produce storms that could destroy cities. The oceans contain enough salt to poison any normal biology. And that's before we discuss the predators, the diseases, the plants that produce toxins strong enough to kill with a touch. Yes, Thelmar said calmly. And the humans survived all of that, thrived in it. Which is exactly why they were able to do in 14 hours what we couldn't do in 3 months. They saved Eshtar Prime. By using violence on a scale we've never seen. Kren slammed his hand on the podium. I've reviewed the battle footage. They used kinetic bombardment, chemical weapons, and tactics that would be considered war crimes under council law. They fought with a brutality that is simply not acceptable in civilized space. A Corvalli delegate spoke up quietly. And yet my people are alive because of that brutality. My children will grow up because humans were willing to do what we could not. The chamber fell silent at that. It was the central question that nobody wanted to face directly. The Galactic Council prided itself on being civilized, on solving problems through diplomacy and peaceful means. Their military forces were defensive in nature, designed to minimize casualties even among enemy forces. It was a philosophy that worked well when everyone followed the same rules. But the Vorax didn't care about rules. They didn't negotiate. They just consumed. And the Council's gentle approach had been useless against them. On Eshtar Prime, Admiral Tay was having his own crisis of conscience. He stood in his temporary command center, watching the reports come in from Earth. Public opinion back home was divided. Some people were proud that humanity had saved an alien world. Others were worried about getting involved in a galactic war that wasn't their problem. And a few were concerned that showing the galaxy humanity's military capabilities might make the quarantine permanent. Commander Hana entered the room carrying a datapad. Sir, we've received a formal communication from the Galactic Council. They want to meet with you. They're not sure what to do with us. Can't say I blame them, Tay said quietly. We did break quarantine. And we did it by killing thousands of Vorax in a single night. That probably wasn't the first impression we wanted to make. Would you do it differently, sir? If you could go back? Tay thought about that for a moment. He thought about Governor Venlar's face when he emerged from the shelter. He thought about the Corvalli children he had seen, alive because his Marines had held the line. He thought about the 14 other worlds still under Vorax attack, still calling for help that the Council couldn't provide. No, he said finally, I wouldn't change a thing. Those people needed help. We gave it. If that makes us monsters in the Council's eyes, so be it. Lieutenant Wu burst into the room, his face pale. Sir, we've got new intelligence on the Vorax. Major Yuna finished analyzing the samples we collected from the battle. He pulled up a holographic display showing Vorax biology in disturbing detail. They adapt, sir, fast. Every weapon the Council used against them, the Vorax evolved a resistance within weeks. That's why the Council's defenses failed. By the time they developed a new weapon, the Vorax had already adapted to it. Hana leaned forward, studying the display. But they haven't adapted to our weapons yet. Exactly, Wu said. Because they've never encountered Earth-based warfare before. Our kinetic weapons, our chemical compounds, even our tactical approaches are completely alien to them. But once they encounter our weapons enough times, they'll start adapting. We have a window of opportunity, but it won't last forever. Tay absorbed this information, his mind already working through the implications. How long do we have? Based on their adaptation rate? Maybe a few weeks. A month at most before they start developing resistances. Then we need to hit them hard and fast, Tay said, before they learn how to fight us. He turned to Hana. Get me a meeting with Speaker Thelmar. And tell Fleet Admiral Sung that we need the full battle group here as soon as possible. All of it. 3 days later, Fleet Admiral Sung arrived at Eshtar Prime with 500 warships. The Kervali couldn't believe what they were seeing. The human fleet wasn't just large, it was overwhelming. Ship after ship dropped out of hyperspace, each one bristling with weapons that the Galactic Council had never imagined could exist. Sung met with Tai in private before the council meeting. He was older than Tay, with gray hair and eyes that had seen too many wars. He had fought in the resource wars as a young officer. He understood the cost of violence better than anyone. The council is scared of us, Sung said bluntly, and maybe they should be. I've read your battle reports. The tactics you used were effective, but they were also brutal. We're going to have to live with that reputation. I know, sir, Tay replied. But right now, being feared is better than being ignored. The Vorax are still attacking. 23 worlds have fallen. 9 more are under siege. If we don't act now, billions will die. And you think we can stop them? I think we're the only ones who can, sir. The Council's military doctrine is designed to minimize casualties and avoid collateral damage. It's admirable, but it's useless against an enemy that doesn't care about survival. The Vorax will keep coming until they're all dead or we are. And humans understand that kind of fight better than anyone. Sung nodded slowly. All right. Brief your commanders. We're going to war. But Tay, I need you to understand something. When this is over, win or lose, we're going to have to answer for every life we take. The galaxy is watching. They're measuring us. We need to win this war without becoming the thing they're afraid we are. That evening, Commander Day assembled her Marine commanders for a briefing. The room was packed with soldiers who had fought on Eshtar Prime and lived to tell about it. They were confident, maybe too confident. Day needed to remind them what was at stake. Listen up, she said, her voice cutting through the chatter. We won one battle. That doesn't mean we've won the war. The Vorax are adapting to us even as we speak. Every encounter we have with them makes them smarter, tougher, harder to kill. So we need to end this fast. She pulled up a tactical map, showing the Vorax-occupied systems. Our job is to board their hive ships and destroy them from the inside. It's going to be ugly. These ships are organic. They're filled with acid, parasites, and biological weapons we've never seen before. Some of you won't make it back. The room stayed quiet. Every Marine there knew the risks. They had all volunteered anyway. But here's what the Vorax don't understand about humans, Day continued. They think we're just another species, just another set of soft targets. They don't know that we come from a world that tried to kill us every single day. They don't know that humans survived ice ages, plagues, volcanic winters, and our own stupidity. They don't know that when you push a human into a corner, when you threaten what they're protecting, they don't quit. They don't surrender. They fight until they win or they die. She looked around the room, making eye contact with each commander. So we're going to show them what Deathworlders look like when they go to war. We're going to hit them so hard, so fast, that they won't have time to adapt. And when it's over, the galaxy is going to remember that when humans make a promise, they keep it. We promise to help. So that's exactly what we're going to do. The Marines stood as one, saluting. They knew what was coming. They knew the cost. And they were ready anyway, because that's what humans did. When someone needed help, you showed up, no matter what. The war was about to begin in earnest, and the Vorax were about to learn why Earth had been quarantined in the first place. The human counteroffensive began at dawn across 7 star systems simultaneously. Fleet Admiral Sung had divided his forces into strike groups, each one targeting a different Vorax-occupied world. The strategy was simple and brutal. Hit every target at once, give the swarm no time to coordinate, and use overwhelming force to end the fight before the Vorax could adapt. Admiral Tay led the assault on the Vorax breeding world of Kresh 7, a planet that had once been home to peaceful farming communities. Now it was a nightmare of organic structures, pulsing biomatter, and swarm warriors being grown by the millions. The planet had to die. Tay knew this. His crew knew this. The Galactic Council observers who watched from a safe distance were about to learn what humans meant by total war. "Lieutenant Wu, are the kinetic rods in position?" Tay asked from his command chair. "Yes, sir. 40 tungsten penetrators in orbit, synchronized for simultaneous impact, each one weighing 20 tons. Traveling at 40,000 kilometers per hour." Tay took a deep breath. What he was about to order would kill everything on the planet's surface. Every Vorax warrior, every breeding pool, every organic structure. The Council would call it genocide. Humans called it survival. Fire. The tungsten rods fell from orbit like the hand of an angry god. They hit the surface at speeds that turned them into liquid metal, each impact releasing energy equivalent to a nuclear weapon. The shock waves circled the planet, triggering earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. The breeding pools boiled away in seconds. The atmosphere ignited. From space, Kresh 7 looked like a miniature sun for almost 10 minutes. When it was over, the planet was dead. Completely, utterly dead. Nothing could survive what Tay had just done. Captain Jin watched the displays in silence. He had grown up on stories of Earth's mass extinction events, the asteroid strikes and supervolcano eruptions that had killed off entire species. Now humans were creating those events on purpose. It was horrifying. It was necessary. It was what Deathworlders did when they went to war. "Vorax ships are retreating from the system," Jin reported. "They're running, sir." "Good," Tay said quietly. "Track them. I want to know where they're going." Across the battle zone, Major Yuna was introducing the Vorax to chemical warfare on a scale the galaxy had never imagined. Her engineering teams deployed atmospheric dispersal systems that released compounds designed specifically to target Vorax biology. Nerve agents that shut down their hive mind connections. Bioweapons that attacked their regenerative capabilities. Incendiary chemicals that burned hotter than anything the swarm had encountered before. The Vorax tried to adapt. Their biology shifted and changed, evolving resistances in real time. But Yuna had predicted this. She had designed her weapons in stages, each compound triggering different biological responses. By the time the Vorax adapted to one weapon, the next one was already deployed. It was predatory evolution in reverse, humanity using its intelligence to stay one step ahead of the swarm's biological advantages. "How's it working?" Admiral Sung asked during one of their tactical briefings. Yuna pulled up the data, her face showing no emotion. 93% kill rate on the first deployment, 81% on the second, 72% on the third. They're adapting faster than I expected, but we're still well ahead of them. If we keep the pressure on, they won't have time to develop complete resistances." "And the moral implications?" Sung asked quietly. Yuna met his eyes. "Sir, these aren't people. They're a hive mind organism that exists only to consume other life. They don't negotiate. They don't surrender. They just eat everything until there's nothing left. If we don't stop them with everything we have, they'll eventually reach Earth, and I'm not willing to let that happen." The ground war was Commander Day's domain. While the fleet destroyed Vorax worlds from orbit, she led boarding actions against their hive ships. These were the most dangerous missions, requiring Marines to enter organic structures that were actively trying to kill them. The ship's interiors were like living bodies, with corridors that tried to crush intruders, atmosphere filled with toxic spores, and biological defenses that ranged from acid sprayers to parasitic organisms that burrowed into armor. Day's Marines wore heavy combat suits designed for extreme environments. They had trained for this in volcanic tubes on Earth, in deep ocean trenches, in radioactive zones where a single mistake meant death. The Vorax hive ships were terrible, but they weren't worse than Earth's worst places, and humans had survived those for millions of years. "Breaching now," Day said as her team cut through the outer hull of a hive ship. The interior was dark and wet, the walls pulsing like flesh. Her helmet display showed heat signatures everywhere, movement, lots of it. "Stay tight. Watch your corners. These things know we're here." The Vorax warriors came in waves. Day's team moved through the ship methodically, clearing each section with practiced efficiency. When they encountered a chamber too dangerous to enter normally, they pumped it full of incendiary gel and burned it clean. When bioweapons sprayed acid at them, they sealed the corridors and rerouted through maintenance passages. When the ship itself tried to crush them with contracting walls, they used explosives to blast their way forward. It took 6 hours to reach the ship's central nerve cluster. By then, Day had lost 12 Marines, good soldiers, friends. But the mission was too important to stop. She placed the charges herself, setting them for maximum yield. "All teams fall back to extraction points," she ordered. "We've got 2 minutes before this thing turns into fireworks." They made it out with 30 seconds to spare. From her escape pod, Day watched the hive ship explode, pieces of organic matter spreading across space like blood in water. One ship down. Dozens more to go. Lieutenant Wu was analyzing the Vorax fleet movements when he noticed the pattern. "Admiral Tay, I think I've found something. Every time we destroy one of their breeding worlds, the Vorax pull forces from 2 nearby systems to reinforce the next target. They're predictable. Too predictable. They're using hive mind coordination," Tay said. "They can't help but follow the most efficient pattern." "Exactly, which means we can predict where they'll mass their forces next. And if we know where they're going to be..." Wu pulled up a tactical display. "We can be waiting for them." The trap was set at the Voral system. Human forces appeared to be attacking a minor Vorax outpost, deliberately moving slowly, making themselves look vulnerable. The Vorax took the bait, pulling ships from across the sector to overwhelm what they thought was an isolated human fleet. But the human ships they saw were decoys, automated drones broadcasting false signatures. The real fleet was hiding in the system's asteroid field, powered down and invisible to sensors. When the Vorax fleet committed fully to the attack, Tay gave the order. "All ships, weapons free, kill them all." The human fleet emerged from hiding and opened fire at point-blank range. The Vorax fleet, packed together for maximum efficiency, became a target-rich environment. Missiles, lasers, and kinetic weapons tore through organic hulls. The Vorax tried to scatter, but there was nowhere to go. They were boxed in, trapped by their own tactical doctrine. The battle lasted 42 minutes. When it was over, the largest Vorax fleet anyone had ever seen was nothing but debris floating in space. The tide of the war had turned, but the cost was mounting. Human casualties were in the thousands now. Ships were damaged faster than they could be repaired. And the Marines were exhausted, running on stimulants and sheer determination. Day looked at her remaining troops and saw people who had given everything they had. They needed rest. They needed time to recover, but the Vorax weren't giving them time. The swarm was in full retreat now, pulling back toward their queen world, the source of their hive mind. Intelligence suggested that the queen world was massive, heavily defended, and absolutely critical to the swarm's survival. Destroy it, and the entire Vorax collective would collapse. Fleet Admiral Sung called a meeting of his senior commanders. The holographic display showed the Queen World, a moon-sized organic construct that pulsed with bioenergy. The defenses were incredible, thousands of ships, millions of warriors, weapons that the humans had never encountered before. "We can't win a conventional battle against that," Captain Jin said quietly. "We'd lose half our fleet just getting close." "Then we don't fight conventionally," Tay said. He pulled up a classified file, marked with Earth's highest security clearance. We use the Ragnarok Protocol. The room fell silent. Every officer there knew what Ragnarok was. It was humanity's doomsday weapon, developed during the darkest days of the resource wars and then banned by every Earth nation. It was too powerful, too terrible to ever use. A weapon designed to crack planets open and sterilize them completely. "Sir," Commander Hanna said carefully, "using that weapon would... There's no coming back from that. The Council would never trust us again." "I know," Sung said heavily. "But billions of lives are at stake. If we don't stop the Vorax here, they'll rebuild. They'll adapt to everything we've thrown at them. And next time, we might not be able to stop them at all." He looked around the room at his officers. "I'm not ordering anyone to do this. I'm asking for volunteers. If we go forward with Ragnarok, we'll save the galaxy. But we'll do it by proving that everything they feared about Deathworlders was true." Tay stood up first. "I volunteer, sir." One by one, the others stood. Captain Jin, Lieutenant Wu, Commander Day, Major Yuna, every single officer in the room. They knew what it meant. They knew the price, and they were willing to pay it anyway, because that's what humans did. When survival was on the line, they did what was necessary, no matter the cost to themselves. "Then it's decided," Sung said quietly. "We end this, one way or another." The Vorax Queen world filled the viewscreen like a nightmare made real. It was massive, roughly the size of Earth's moon, but where Earth's moon was dead rock, this was alive. The surface pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. Organic structures stretched kilometers into space. And surrounding it was the largest concentration of Vorax forces ever assembled. Captain Jin sat in the pilot seat of a small infiltration ship, checking his systems one final time. The Ragnarok device was secured in the cargo bay, a cylindrical weapon no larger than a human, but containing enough destructive power to tear apart a planet. Getting it to the Queen World's core would require stealth, luck, and someone willing to fly through hell itself. "All systems green," Jin reported to Admiral Tay. "Ready for deployment on your mark." "Captain," Tay's voice came through the comm, heavy with emotion. "You don't have to do this. We can find another way." "Sir, with respect, we both know there is no other way. Someone has to deliver the weapon. Someone has to make sure it deploys correctly. And someone has to accept that they're probably not coming back." Jin allowed himself a small smile. "Besides, I'm the best pilot in the fleet. If anyone can thread through that defense network, it's me." Lieutenant Wu's voice joined the conversation. "Captain, I'm showing you the optimal approach vector. There's a gap in their patrol pattern every 43 seconds. If you time it right, you should be able to slip through their outer defenses before they detect you." "Should be able to." Jin laughed. "I love your confidence, Lieutenant." "I've calculated your survival probability at 3.2%, Wu said honestly. "Better odds than I expected. Jin out." The diversionary attack began exactly on schedule. The entire human fleet, 300 warships strong, launched a frontal assault on the Vorax defenses. It was loud, aggressive, and designed to pull every bit of attention away from Jin's infiltration run. Admiral Tay coordinated the attack from the Indomitable, throwing ship after ship at the enemy lines, trading human lives for the seconds that Jin needed. Commander Day led another wave of boarding actions, her Marines hitting multiple hive ships simultaneously to create maximum chaos. They fought with desperate fury, knowing that somewhere in the darkness, Captain Jin was racing toward the target. Every second they bought him was paid for in blood. Major Yuna deployed her final chemical weapons, massive dispersal clouds that forced the Vorax ships to maneuver defensively. The alien fleet's coordination began to break down under the multi-pronged assault. And in that brief moment of confusion, Jin made his move. His infiltration ship was small and fast, painted with materials that absorbed sensor scans. He flew through the gap in the patrol pattern, then dove toward the Queen World's surface. Vorax fighters detected him immediately and gave chase. Jin's hands moved across the controls with practiced precision, weaving between obstacles, using the Queen World's organic structures for cover. A fighter got a lock on him. Jin rolled hard, the shot missing by meters. Another came at him from above. He pulled up into a climb that would have killed most pilots, the G-forces pushing him to the edge of consciousness. The fighter followed, unable to match his turn rate. Jin spun and put 3 shots into its weak points, sending it spiraling away. "I'm through the outer defenses," he reported. "Entering the atmosphere now." The Queen World's atmosphere was poison, thick with spores and biomatter that tried to clog his engines. Jin pushed through, his ship shaking as it descended. The surface rushed up to meet him, a landscape of pulsing flesh and organic canyons. He found what he was looking for, a massive opening that led into the Queen World's interior, like a throat leading into the belly of a beast. "I see the entry point," Jin said. "Going in." Inside the Queen World was worse than any nightmare. The walls were lined with nutrient veins thick as trees. The air was filled with spores that tried to eat through his ship's hull. And everywhere, there were Vorax warriors, thousands of them, rushing to intercept the intruder who had violated their most sacred space. Jin flew deeper, following the path that Wu had calculated. The Queen World's interior was a maze of organic passages, but Wu's analysis had identified the route to the central nerve cluster, the heart of the hive mind. That's where the Ragnarok device needed to be placed. A passage collapsed behind him, the Queen World itself trying to trap him. Jin accelerated, racing ahead of the closing walls. Warriors leaped at his ship from the sides. He shot them without slowing down, their bodies falling into the organic canyons below. "I'm approaching the core," Jin reported. His voice was calm despite everything. "Preparing to deploy the device." "Captain Jin," Commander Hana's voice came through and she was crying. "Thank you for everything." "Tell Earth I did my job," Jin said quietly. "Tell them we weren't monsters." He reached the core, a massive chamber where the Queen herself resided. She was enormous, a grotesque combination of insect and something older, darker. Her presence filled the entire space, and when she saw Jin's ship, she screamed. The sound was telepathic, hitting Jin's mind like a physical blow, but humans had fought through pain before. Jin's hands stayed steady as he deployed the Ragnarok device, setting it for maximum yield. The timer started. 60 seconds. He tried to turn his ship around, tried to make a run for the exit, but the passage was blocked. The Queen World had sealed itself, trapping him inside. "This is Captain Jin," he said into the comm. "Device is armed and deployed. Exit route is blocked. I'm not making it out." "Captain, we can—" Admiral Tay started. "No, sir, you can't. The device is set. In 45 seconds, this whole structure is going to collapse into itself. Get the fleet clear. That's an order. Well, a request, since I'm about to die and can't really give orders anymore." He laughed, a sound that was almost peaceful. "It's been an honor serving with you all." The Queen screamed again, and warriors poured into the chamber. Jin used his ship's remaining weapons to hold them back, buying the last few seconds the timer needed. He thought about Earth, about the blue oceans and green forests, about the planet that had tried to kill humanity for millions of years and somehow created the most stubborn species in the galaxy. "Tell them we did what was right," Jin said. "Tell them Deathworlders came to save lives, not end them. Tell them—" The timer hit 0. The Ragnarok device activated, and the Queen World began to die. It started at the core, reality itself tearing apart as the weapon released its terrible power. The Queen's scream cut off abruptly. The warriors froze in place as the hive mind collapsed. And then the entire structure began to implode, organic matter being pulled toward the center point where the device had detonated. Admiral Tay watched from the Indomitable as the Queen World collapsed in on itself. The implosion was visible from across the system, a brief flash of light that marked the end of the Vorax hive mind. And then there was just silence. "All Vorax ships have gone dark," Lieutenant Wu reported quietly. "They're drifting. No coordinated movement. The hive mind is dead." The fleet held position in stunned silence. They had won. The war was over. But the cost had been terrible. Captain Jin was gone. 3,000 human soldiers had died in the diversionary attack, and humanity had just proven to the galaxy that Deathworlders were exactly as dangerous as everyone had feared. The aftermath took weeks to process. The Vorax drones, cut off from the hive mind, simply died. Across dozens of star systems, the organic ships decayed and fell apart. The threat was ended completely and permanently. The Galactic Council was saved, but the victory was complicated. Speaker Thelmar came to meet with Fleet Admiral Sung personally, traveling to Eshtar Prime, where the human fleet was recovering. The meeting was formal and tense. "You saved us," Thelmar said simply. "Billions of lives exist because you answered our call. The Council owes humanity a debt that can never be repaid." "But," Sung prompted. "But we are also terrified," Thelmar admitted. "We saw what you did to win. The kinetic bombardments, the chemical weapons, the final weapon that destroyed the Queen world. These are capabilities we never imagined any species would develop, let alone use." "We developed them because we had to," Sung said. "Earth is not a kind planet. It created hurricanes, earthquakes, diseases, and predators that forced humanity to adapt or die. We learned to fight because fighting was the only way to survive. And when you called for help, we brought those skills with us. The question now is, what happens next? Can we trust you? Can the galaxy coexist with a species capable of such violence?" Sung met his gaze steadily. "You can ask that question another way. Would you rather have humanity as your ally or your enemy? Because we're not going away. We're here now. We know you exist. And pretending we don't exist won't make us disappear." "What do you want from the Council?" Thelmar asked. "Partnership," Commander Hana said, stepping forward. She had been appointed Earth's first ambassador specifically for this moment. "Not conquest, not domination, just a chance to be part of the galactic community, to trade knowledge, share cultures, and help each other when threats arise. Yes, we're dangerous. Yes, we come from a world that made us into fighters. But that same world also taught us compassion, cooperation, and the value of protecting those who can't protect themselves." Thelmar considered this for a long moment. "The Council will offer humanity associate membership. You will be welcome in our space, but watched. Carefully. We will trade with you, learn from you, and hopefully come to trust you. But you must understand, the galaxy will never forget what you did to win this war." "We wouldn't expect you to," Hana replied. "We won't forget it either. Every life we took weighs on us. Every extreme measure we used was a choice we made knowing the consequences. But we'd make the same choices again, because the alternative was letting billions die. That's what Deathworlders do. We choose the hard path when it's necessary." In the months that followed, humanity established its first embassies on Council worlds. Commander Hana worked tirelessly to build bridges and trust. Major Yuna began sharing Earth's engineering knowledge, carefully teaching the aliens how to build better defenses without sharing the most dangerous weapon designs. Commander Day returned to Earth a hero. Though she never talked about the war, the memories were too heavy. Admiral Tay received a unique honor. On Eshtar Prime, the Corvalli built a monument to the humans who had saved their world. It was a simple statue showing a human hand extended in greeting, but the hand was scarred and damaged from battle. The inscription read in both human and Corvalli languages. They came not because they were asked. They came because it was right. They fought not because they were cruel. They fought because they were kind. Remember the Deathworlders who proved that strength and compassion can exist together. Tay stood before the monument on the anniversary of the battle, and Governor Venlar joined him. The Corvalli governor was older now, grayer, but alive. "Do you regret it?" Venlar asked quietly. "The violence? The measures you took?" Tay thought about Captain Jin, about the 3,000 soldiers who died, about the terrible weapons humanity had unleashed. "Every day," he said honestly, "but I don't regret saving your people. I don't regret answering the call for help. I just wish there had been another way." "There wasn't," Venlar said gently. "We searched for years, tried everything. You did what was necessary. And my children, my grandchildren, will live because you had the courage to do it." High above, human and alien ships flew together on joint patrol, guarding the systems that had almost fallen to the Vorax. Earth had joined the galactic community, and the universe would never be the same. Humanity had shown the galaxy what Deathworlders looked like. They were dangerous. They were capable of terrible violence. But they were also loyal, compassionate, and willing to sacrifice everything to protect others. And when the next threat emerged somewhere in the galaxy, everyone knew who would answer the call.